Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of the HorseShow360 podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, HorseShow360 podcast. Follow us on all podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and all the above. I'm joined here today. We got a cool group today, actually, because this is the Santa Anita 5-star recap episode, and I'm super excited about this episode because it was just an incredible event. It was absolutely amazing. Everything I think all of us could have dreamt of for a first year event, and excited to talk about it. I'm joined here today with co-host Mike Belisle. Thanks. Nice story.
Hey guys.
Thank you. We got Sami here in the office, COO of Split Rock Jumping Tour and major lead on all the planning for the 5-star this year in LA, as well as joined by Ashlyn Moore. Ashlyn is joined here from First Racing and representative of the Santa Anita group that also helped us plan the entire event. And I would also call you the lead alongside Sami in planning this entire thing. How would you describe your position and role a part of this team?
Yeah, I think Sami and I were two peas in a pod. It was amazing to work with her and you, actually the whole team, the whole Split Rock team throughout this process, but definitely part of the planning committee to put this on.
Cool. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, let's start with that actually, because I think that that's like the biggest piece of this puzzle that made this event tick and made this event so amazing, honestly, is the team. Anytime you're working with different groups and entities and teams out there, facilities, there's so many different variables. There's so many different vendors, consultants a part of each teams and everything that we have to work with, that sometimes it can be a little complicated. And of course, anytime you have new partnerships, you have growing pains, figuring out people's personalities, relationships, and everything like that. But I think that what was really cool about this partnership between First and Split Rock is we knew from the beginning that like the two groups were awesome. You know what I mean? Like the two groups, like in their own right of planning major events, like are just on their own really amazing. So we knew from the beginning the partnership like could be great and should be great, and it was just meshing the two teams to figuring how to work together to make the end product what it really needed to be. And for all intents and purposes, I think the event was like an unbelievable success. Honestly, like a lot of the areas of the event turned out even better than I envisioned. And I think that was a result of the teams like coming together when it counted to just make shit happen, right? Like make it happen, whatever needed to be done, when it needed to be done. But every individual on each team just said, put their egos aside, put everything aside, and just said, this deserves to be the coolest freaking 5-star either on the West Coast or even in North America. And I think that in general, was all of our goals, right?
For sure.
How do you feel, Ashlyn? Mike? What do you think, Mike?
Well, I was just going to say before we get into Ashlyn and I just want to say I've been doing this for 32 years now. That dates me a lot, but a long time.
Older.
But anyways, we won't go into that. But I have to say, two leads on a project. I've never seen two people come together and be able to work so well together and complement each other in terms of two different teams. And normally in these kind of situations, like Derek pointed out, we've worked with lots of different entities when you go into a project, but I've never seen it quite like this, in that you two worked so well together and it made everything else work. So I commend you on that and your attitude, and just personalities, I think, gelled, but you guys can touch on that yourselves.
Yeah, I think we were just all in the mindset of just say yes. Like if we don't know something, let's work together, let's figure it out. I mean, from first, we put on major marquee events in horse sport, horse racing, over 300 days a year. I mean, we hold some of the biggest events like Preakness or Pegasus, but we didn't know show jumping. We really relied on your team and your expertise to kind of guide us. And I think it was a blend of like really good entertainment, lifestyle, hospitality, and like the best showcase of horse sport. So
And you guys have done Breeders' Cup as well, right?
yeah, Santa Anita's actually hosted Breeders' Cup 11 times.
Which is
We've
behemoth, that's insane.
completely. I mean, over 100,000 people on the grounds, all the teams pulling in the right direction for entertainment, and that's what this was on a smaller scale in terms of attendees, but of the highest quality. I mean, we had some of the best Olympic riders, the best riders around the world.
You guys know attention to detail, which it shows. So
Well, honestly, I mean, when you're talking major events like Breeders' Cup and these kind of races and Weakness and all this stuff that you guys have experience with, I mean, those are way larger events than we've put on, that on a completely other caliber. So that's where, yeah, we know the people in show jumping, we know what they want, what they need, and everything like that, and we appreciate that you guys trusted us to kind of execute that side of it for this event. But also, I think one thing that was like super cool and unique about this show and these shows at Santa Anita were also like the racing touches. You mentioned like horse sport and connecting events like with equestrian and racing. It's still horse sport. Like Mike and I talked about this actually on episode 8, the last episode. We were talking about spectators and stuff like that. And connecting events. That's how my initial conversations with Nikki Walker began, by connecting like other equine events to where we can capitalize on that atmosphere and venues and stuff like that. And I think that First did such a cool job at accentuating and highlighting the cool factors on the racing side and incorporating them into little touches. Like you guys decided to put those flower blankets, even though I was like hesitant about it because I thought it was just going to like mortify the horses, right? But it turned out totally fine and awesome.
I mean, that shot of Carl Cook, just when his mare just stood up with her ears
Yep.
forward at the very end with the floral blanket. I mean, what a moment.
Sure. And also like putting like the starting gate, like Aiden making the decision to put the starting gate directly next to the behind the scoreboard on the track right in front of the mountains, where like every jumping shot has it in the background. Like you can't recreate that stuff. Like I was watching the episode of Carl and mine. I think that was episode 7, and us sitting on the couch, the background looks fake.
Yeah.
And it's not.
for sure.
It's like real.
Just Santa Anita's gorgeous beauty. Like, it's so
Yeah.
picturesque there.
Like you can't recreate these things. So like all of these things like contributed to like people's experience at the event. And we all like envision and have the vision for what this event was supposed to turn out and look like and flow and run and operate. But I don't know that I think we all expected it to turn out well, but I don't know that we expected it to turn out that good. And of course, there's a lot of things that we make note of and can do different and can improve on. And I think that makes our team so good, is that we're always collectively noticing little things that we can tweak and change that hopefully even the competitors and the participants don't even notice. But that's what makes a good organizing team. And I think that we came together to really do that well. So I think the
think we should
overall
go into-
impression.
I think, it's important to, hear Sammy's take on everything. I know she can tend to be hard on herself, but realistically, she pulled it off and she did so much to make this happen. I was so impressed for all the things that she did, and she should be very happy with the outcome because it was amazing. What's your thoughts, Sami?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think like going back a couple questions ago, like, Ashlyn and I, like 18 months ago, we basically like started communicating about this event. And I think both of us at the same time were kind of like, this is something that we can like really work with. And I think that that was such a big part of being able to do what we did. And it took us time to figure out like how to communicate and how to balance our team with the other team, because our team is used to doing everything and every part of the event. So being able
Yeah.
to take entire pieces of this event and say, okay, this is yours, and I trust you and your team to go do it and do it the way that I would expect it, and for her to do the same to our team, like that took a lot of trust with somebody that we didn't really know that well. And like that was really just because I trusted Ashlyn and she trusted me, and same with Derek and same with Aiden and Kevin. And like we've worked with a lot of teams, and to have that immediate trust of knowing that everybody was in it and to do it the best of the ability and to give it whatever it needed to make sure it happened, like there was really never any question. And that I think was really special to note, because it wasn't just, you know, it, yes, Ashlyn and I think collectively kind of touched every part of this event, but there was
Made shit happen.
100+ people
For sure.
that actually made it happen. And so the way that the teams communicated, I mean, of course there were hiccups and things that were like, oh, next year, you know, and I was like
Let's do
going
this
through
better.
it last night. Yeah, getting kind of prepping for this call, and I was like laughing, making the list, because the things that I was picking out to do better next year are so minuscule compared to what they could have been. And I think for us, like, you know, there are things that are even just different from what happens in the racing world and what's normal in the racing world and what we're used to in the show jumping world. And there's a lot of things where Ashlyn or I we'd come to each other in a panic and be like, this isn't how this goes. And I would be like, it is, it's okay, you know, whatever. And then I would come to her and she'd be like, nope, we've got it. Our team has it. Don't worry, I'm on it. And that goes a long way. Like if you don't trust your team and you don't trust the people that are doing it, it wouldn't have been possible, because you cannot touch every single part of an event that size and every detail of it. And we actually ended up adding, it was Derek's idea and why it took us 10 years to think of this, but we all ended up having like earpieces in for the big nights. And we had pieces around the whole property that when I saw something or Derek saw something from the in gate that was hundreds of feet away, we could like radio to Ashlyn and she's like, yep, I'm over here, I've got it. And like that's a small part of a bigger picture, that like communication is actually everything. And you have to be able to communicate and communicate freely with your team and everybody that's on it to be able to make things happen. And I think that was probably the hardest thing to learn working together with our two teams, is like, how are these two teams used to communicating and communicating effectively? Because it was not that easy in the beginning. I remember getting on calls and there was like 40 people on there. And I was like, oh my, what is going on? Because we're used to having me and Derek or me, Derek, Mike, and Stephanie, like 4, maybe 6 of us in a room together talking about something. And I was like, at first I was intimidated by it. But then when I got to know everybody, I was like, wow, this is cool, because there's somebody for this task to make sure that that task gets done in totality. And so instead of being like almost consumed by how many people there were, it was like, okay, this is going to be really cool, because everybody's going to be able to really do this at a 5-star level. And I think that that's something that we've never had to that scale before. So there were so many different parts and pieces to it. But no, Ashlyn and I pretty much, if we actually literally did not call each other 20 times a day in the last 6 months, it was like abnormal. I was leaving LA and she was leaving, and we were like, we're going to have like just all withdrawals from now, you know, talk to everybody. And that's what it takes to put an event on. And, you know, everybody's like, is this coming back? And, you know, it's like, yeah, this is a 4-year contract, and I'm glad it is, because now we're all, now we're definitely in it
for people
It's
that are
funny
listening.
because, sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, how many hours, just a rough guess, do you think Ashlyn and Sami, you worked on this project? Just to give people a rough idea of how many hours?
I mean, it had to be start dating a year and a half ago. What, like over 1,000 hours? I mean,
I do remember getting home like last week on Wednesday. I like put the kids down and I sat on the couch and I was like, whoa. I don't know, like 6 hours of work staring me in the face. I mean, Ashlyn and I were on the phone with each other some nights at 11:30 at night, trying to figure out plants and signage and these last minute things and carrots and just these crazy things that, I mean,
Let's not talk about plants.
yeah, the plants look good, but yeah, it was a lot, and the time difference and the time zones, and not only that, but like Ashlyn and her team put on an event a month before that, California Crown, and that was a new event for them too. So they were not only trying to plan this event, but they were also planning that event. And so we really, as teams, were able to fully engage on this one with nothing else in the immediate future about a month to 6 weeks out before this event.
Yeah,
That was a big piece too.
I think realistically, like one of the things that was hard for us with the first team, in all honesty, and Ashlyn, you know this, that Sami and I expected that the engagement level was going to like heighten extremely like just weeks before the event. And we kind of knew that a little bit far out because you guys had a first year event in California Crown that you guys were just completely consumed with, which is understandable. But like knowing that we like wanted to do some of these details further out was a hard part, but we all made it work.
But I think that comes back down to the trust, because there was a point where I was like, you know what, like, but we've got it. Like, it's gonna be a mad dash, but I know that it's gonna happen, and I know we've got it because I know how capable these two teams are. So that was peaceful in its own right.
Let's talk. What were you saying, Ashlyn?
No, I was just gonna say I would totally agree. Like, we did have a new inaugural event that we are planning, but I would say kudos to your team as well, because it's small, but it's mighty. I mean, all of you really work together. You communicate very well, and it made things easier on us. And so while we were simultaneously planning 2 events, we knew that the sports side of things and all the details that are really important for the competitors, you guys had handled, and we didn't even have to think about, which was different for us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Let's talk about like overall impressions from the different groups and stuff like that. Then we'll get into like the little details of venue and stuff like that. And I want to talk about some of the things that we can actually do. We know we can do better for next year, and some of the things that we knew were going to be slight issues and we pivoted and made happen, because I think people listening are going to want to hear those little details that we are internally panicked about, but we hope people don't see it, on the outside. I think that that's important when we're organizing events like this, because organizing events like it is chaos. And, the whole point of organizing events is to make sure the clients are happy, make sure the impression is good, and the experience is exactly what everybody expects from one of the best 5 stars, hopefully, in the world. So, and those were our goals. I think the overall impression for competitors was like overwhelmingly positive. Like in our world, that doesn't really happen a lot.
That's a rarity. That's a rarity.
Yeah, we get some thank yous here and there, but we don't as organizers, we know that we have to like I said, I think our first episode was like, we're like a SWAT team, like dodging bullets. Like if people are coming to us, they're coming to us with negatives, not positives in the normal situation. And
I've learned to not sit around and wait for a pat on the back, because it's not coming. We're there to make the best experiences we can, but it's not through, that acknowledgement of good job, guys, because it doesn't happen that often.
and I think
negative.
I think that overwhelming, like the exhibitors were so happy, and I think it's because of the 2 teams coming together to think about all the little details. And honestly, yes, all the little details like in the stabling and all of those helped on the split rock side, but also first allowing us to execute that plan, execute the layout. I thought the layout was amazing. Like for a first year event, for us to nail the layout of the arenas on the infield, the proximity to the stabling, all of that kind of stuff was, for a first year event, like I want to say it was luck that it worked out so well, but I don't think it was. I mean, how many iterations, Ashlyn, did we have over a 6-month span going over these original designs? It was a lot.
Yeah, I think something that really helped, I mean, we probably had I don't know, a ton of iterations just to tweak and make sure that the layout that we had was the right one. And I think, Nikki Walker being involved in that, and from a competitor standpoint and as an athlete, and same with yourself, Derek, like you've also competed at a high level, those two worlds blending. I think that's why we got the layout to the way that it was.
Yeah, and I think one of my little worries, I hope people watch like episode 8 and 9 or 7 and 9 or whatever, because Carl actually talks a lot about the positives and everything like that with this event. And honestly, his mother right before the Grand Prix, Signe, gave me probably one of the best compliments of our team that anybody could give us. And that was, she said that her team was talking the other day that she couldn't believe this was a first year event because everything just seemed to work. Everybody was calm and everybody seemed to be where they needed to be when they needed to be there. And she's like, I don't get that from events that I've seen for 10 years. So, that's like the best compliment an organizer could get from somebody that's been to every major 5-star in the world, and Carl being a close friend of mine is extremely critical. Like we're critical of each other and in a good way, and every time we talk, like it's no BS. It's like, nope, you were shit on this, or you rode terrible, or like we're very honest with each other, and he doesn't sugarcoat it. So to have him be so complimentary, I know he won the Grand Prix, but that episode was filmed before he won the Grand Prix, so it wasn't necessarily happy yet.
No favoritism.
Pretty sure he had poles down all until that point, but so it's just really cool to see the overall impression come out the way it did. I know we all lost a lot of sleep making sure that it was that way, but when you're thinking of a 5-star, okay, you need to leave that impression. And I'm not trying to knock some 5-stars out there, but there are some 5-stars that are not up to par for that. And there are some 5-stars like this that absolutely kill it. And that level of detail has to go into it all the time. And I think First is so accustomed to holding the highest level of events in the racing industry that that's standard for you guys. And it showed. It showed because like the level of every detail that you guys put into that venue was top notch. It was not a corner cut on your team, Nikki's approval of everything, maybe internally, the style of tents, the level of footing. That was, I told Brett from ESI, that this was the best footing I've ever seen him do. And people thought that. I had people coming to me.
So many compliments in the fitting.
I had people coming to me, top level riders that like they've never ridden on better footing than this. And that doesn't happen. And it was amazing from start to finish. But these details of spending in the right areas to make sure people's experience, make sure the horse's experience is safe, the rider's experience is safe, happy, quality. These are the things that separated this first year event from probably the average first year event. And because those corners were not cut, I think that's why people's impression and people's experience was the way it was, on top of the setting, on top of the incredible venue of Santa Anita and everything like that. And I think I sent some text messages to, I don't know, Aiden and you, Ashlyn, and a couple people on the team, our team members. This partnership really was a dream because of everybody's expectation to not settle.
Yeah.
To not settle on these details, to make sure, you guys were changing the signs up until the last day of the show, of competition, because some signs didn't look perfect or right. And this is a level of detail that I've always dreamt of from the beginning, Mike. You know that. Remember, you made comments like how annoying I was because I wanted to change so many things all the time.
And those are not to put it down, but from the first side of it, and not to sugarcoat it, you guys have resources. We didn't have the kind of resources you have, but that doesn't mean your attention to detail is like no other that I haven't ever experienced on those simple things. Yeah, there's a ripple in the sign, like Derek said. Okay, let's take it down. Let's get another one and put up. Everything has to be perfect. And it really showed. And it was amazing to be able to work with a group like that, that puts so much attention to those things.
Yeah, I think we have a big team, but they're all motivated and that stand-up is there. I mean, we don't want to settle. We want everything to be perfect, whether it's a race event or a horse show, like everything just has to be top notch.
Yeah.
I think the national week too, like having a whole
Mhm.
week of horse showing before the 5-star was probably our biggest, like the best idea.
That's so
Oh, yeah.
important to
Took a
mention.
week to, yeah, it took a whole week for us to, I mean, Derek and Ken and a lot of others were there every single night at 9 o'clock, the national week, to make sure that those lights were perfect for the 5-star. And changes were being made every single night until Wednesday night of the 5-star week. And the national week went great. Like it even went better than I had expected. But there were things that we changed a lot of, just small things here and there. And hey, for national week this is fine, but for next week we got to level this up a little bit. We brought in more plants. We changed a little bit of the signage. We worked on the lights. We added some lights. We took some away. Like we changed some of the banners out. Like those are the little things that made it really, really that last 10% like tie it all up with a nice bow, you know. And I think we got lucky too. I mean, there's things that you actually can just pray for. Good weather, horses staying safe, riders staying safe. Like those are the things that we have no control over. And I remember it was supposed to rain like all week long. And Derek kept being like, it's gonna rain Saturday, it's gonna rain Saturday, it's gonna rain Saturday. And I was like, well, that one we can't control. We can't do anything about the rain. And I remember standing at the gate and it was like raining. And Derek literally looked up and he's like, okay, you have 2 minutes and then you have to stop. And it literally rained for like 2 minutes and it stopped. And I remember standing at the in gate right before the first horse walked in on Saturday night. And I was like, okay, God, like if you can just give us safe sport tonight, like this is everything we could ever imagine. And like that for me, and those were like, those are the things where you've known that you've done everything you can do. And the other things that you can't control, you just hope and literally pray and just be like, okay, like those things that we can't, but let's throw one up just in case that we've got a
I'm
shot.
glad you brought that up because let's talk about that because we talked about how the footing was good, but it's funny because like I'm not a spiritual person, you know this. I'm not a religious person, but I also like ask for help when I feel like I need it or want to use it. I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, but hearing you say that, but I think it does go back to preparation.
No,
The
it does, yeah.
environment was perfect for perfect sport.
Yeah.
And there are things that could be changed, and you brought it up, the lighting. I'd say if there was one thing that needs to be better next year that we all know is the lighting, the night lighting. We plan night classes. It's been a toss up of like, what does the future look like? We've talked about this. Do we do a day Grand Prix? Do we do a night Grand Prix? I think in LA, I know the setting is amazing with the mountains, but the LA has a night vibe. And I really thought that the vibe during the Grand Prix was amazing. And I'm 50-50 on whether there's going to have to be conversations of whether we change that or not. But we know we're going to be using lights next year. And I don't think people realize, and certainly exhibitors don't realize, that there were variables that made us go with those lights this year. And, it's very easy to say, oh, well, why couldn't you just do different ones or choose different ones? Well, I'm going to tell you the very reasons why we didn't. I know Ken on their team worked so hard to make sure this was right. And this is one of those things where if it wasn't the team at first helping us produce this event, it would not have been as good as it was, because I stood in that arena on our acclimation night on Tuesday night with all the major players, trainers, riders, everybody, production team that helped us build out this crew, and Nikki as well, Nikki Walker. And we all said, can this go brighter? Everybody agreed it could go brighter. Can we get more lights for this? Formula One is going on in Las Vegas and taking up
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of lights that every rental company in all of freaking America have literally on the same week. The answer is I don't know. We can take the lights off of the secondary ring and hope we don't have to use them over there. Good idea. Let's do it. And
Yeah.
it took them until 6:30 a.m. without sleep. The team at First and Ken made that shit happen. And
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, that is not normal for a team.
Ken
But
was like, we are going to get these lights right. We are not leaving until
Yeah.
there's lights in this arena. But
And I think they were as right as they could be.
Yeah.
We made the best of what we had and what we could make it with. And I think that that's a testament to the team. Like, it's just amazing. And I gained so much more trust and respect for the team at First. Not that I didn't have it, but again, until you're in those moments and you see how it's handled, you can't predict of how it's going to go. I mean, easily that must have cost a shit ton of money to make happen, right? To get those production guys back in when they weren't expecting to, work all night, overnight, fly 40 new lights in the next day. Like, people don't realize that could have cost 25 grand more just by one little baby decision that had to be made. But the decision was made and the commitment was done and said, no, we're going to make this right. And that's pretty freaking awesome. But that's one of the areas that we know we're going to improve on for next year. Okay. Easy fix. Everybody was safe.
Yeah.
There was no issues. Turned out great. But yes, that's an area we could definitely can work on. And again, that's just some little things on expectations that we know we can fix. The stabling area, let's talk a little bit about like how people, like, honestly, everybody loved the stabling area. I know there were a few people that thought it was on pavement, but
Yeah.
whatever. You get stall mats. The national stalls were 10 by 10. The FEI stalls were brand spanking new 12 by 12. I know Kevin and Matt had a big hand in creating the wash rack system and
Yeah.
fixing it and pivoting on site, and they did an unbelievable job of making that happen. Actually, Carl commented on the wash racks, how awesome they
But
were.
Derek, were you with me when the other person came up about the wash racks? Or maybe it was Matt and somebody else come up, and I had thought the wash racks were as good as they can be as a temporary wash rack. And then somebody came up, I can't remember who it was. They're like, listen, the wash racks, there's not enough mats in them. There's a space between the stall panel and the first mat, and my horse is slipping on the pavement where that is. And so Matt and I went and looked at it. We're like, okay, I don't understand how this is an issue. It's going to be hard for us to change everything out. And then it was interesting to hear, because I listened, obviously, and Carl saying how nice the wash racks were. But it's funny how there's always a difference of opinion, good, bad, or indifferent. But, it's all, just to go back and what we were saying with all this stuff, I compare all this to like a restaurant. Yes, there was so many things that were going on, like with the lights and detail, and people really the customer doesn't know how much is being done to make the front of the house look good. And we kept it all behind because we're professionals. But realistically, we were all running around. But that's what we should do, right? But it's pretty amazing to see, the finished product. But sorry, back to the stabling area.
Yeah, in the stabling area, people commented on how, I think the proximity, everything was really awesome. Like, even though it was all the stabling was outside the track, and I believe on one of our earlier episodes we showed a rendering of our infield and everything like that. I think it might be good. We'll send the media crew here at Wrigley Media maybe some images that we could post at this point in the episode of our overall facility diagram, so people can really get, that are listening, a good gist of proximity of everything. This stuff matters,
Yeah.
the flow of everything, how easy it is to accommodate for everybody. The stabling was very concise. First team created a FEI hospitality area that like rivaled the VIP. It was so amazing. Like, people were just like eating like crazy in there, a wide variety of things, which is part of the experience. The wash racks were great. That we call it the stockpile because it looks like a mountain when there's not an arena right now of footing, but it was the barn stabling warm-up ring that had lunging, FEI warm-up, and national built in, and it was, I think, 92,000 square feet
Yeah.
in total space, and the shape was a little awkward this year, but that's maybe one thing we can improve a little bit on next year, but in general, it worked out amazing. People loved having a quality space to ride in the barns and do what they needed to do because that's where they spend most of their time. We also created a ridiculously cool grazing area
Yeah, I
for
was just gonna
national
say.
and it's not.
Yeah.
I remember being out there when we were doing one of our site visits and I'm like standing there like, there's a lot of concrete. People are going to bitch about this. Like we need to find a place where people can go and graze their horses and be separate from FEI and national. And I remember being with the FEI site visit and the team in place from USCF and FEI were like, there's no way you guys can make this green. And Aiden, who's titled the president of First, says, I'll have it green in 24 hours. You just watch.
I think he
That
bet
was
them. He was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can get this done." He's like, "We can grow grass."
It was literally like magic. Like we were like,
Yeah.
this is Brad, can we make it green? And then like literally 2 days later, Ashlyn sends me a picture and it's like this beautiful thing of green.
But it was probably a 40-foot wide. I'm going to send our producer a photo of a horse's grazing because I took many of them because it was so awesome that we can post for everybody here. It was probably 40-foot wide by 800 feet long. I mean, we're
for sure.
talking
Yep.
the most amazing little grazing area that's really temporary for these horses. And these are the things that we have to think about when you're talking about it. One of the best events, and you have to have every little variable right. And that was pretty awesome. I do want to talk about
Forget
Ashlyn.
about Aiden's bridge
I
though.
was gonna say, can we talk about the bridge? When are we gonna
Literally something, and you didn't even know.
Gotta mention the bridge.
Okay, so I'm working my way.
Yeah.
I'm working
Yeah.
my way. Okay, so little background. We leading up to the event, probably six months out, we meaning me, was being very hard-headed in the decision to walk the
That's so
horses
not
and
you.
everybody through the I'm going over you, Mike, so you don't make a dig at me. Go walk through the horses through a tunnel to the infield. And now in our world, walking horses through a tunnel is not a big deal. Like we've done it. We do it in Fort Worth. It's common practice at a lot of European shows or indoor shows in a lot of places. Even FEI and those people that came to do the site visit weren't necessarily concerned about it. They just wanted to make sure we had enough rubber mats and the environment right.
added?
You know, the ceiling was, I think, 7'9" in height. It would have worked if we had to do it. But Aiden was very concerned, and rightfully so, about the horse's safety. What if a horse stood up in the tunnel and hit their head and got hurt and all of these other little things? So for me, you know, I was very adamant, like, this can work, this is fine, this can work. But he's like, nope, I'm building a bridge. I'm building a bridge to go over the turf track, and we're going to walk the horses over the track, and we're going to drive golf carts and human people through the tunnel. I'm like, okay, but if I get there and it really doesn't work and the horses don't want to walk in the tunnel and on the bridge, because I think the bridge could be just as scary as the tunnel, then, you know, you're going to have to be okay pivoting. And I admitted that I have photos of the bridge and I have photos of the tunnel. We're going to post those also. So the bridge worked out amazing. Okay. Could it have been a little wider? Yes, but it worked great. No issues with the bridge. We actually only had issues with leading up to the bridge. Down a little hill that was a little deep. The footing was deep the National Week. We changed that for the 5-star week, and it turned out great. Again, the team at Santa Anita just like sent 10 guys. They did whatever they had to do. The track team to fix it, and it was incredible. And so it turned out great. And honestly, the flow turned out better than I could have even predicted. And I can admit it. I was wrong. The bridge was a better idea, and it worked. And the tunnel was a better idea for golf carts and human traffic, and it worked really well. But people need to understand that there was drama around this bridge and tunnel. Like, we couldn't agree on what was going to be better or worse, and we went back and forth for months and months and months on this bridge. But Aiden got the bridge custom made, built in time, delivered, put in place in time. We put footing on top of it, padding on the sides, made it as safe as possible, and it really worked out. And I can chalk that one up to a
Yeah,
loss.
I
on
think
my-
it's funny because we put that bridge in and we're sitting there the night that it's in, and we're all walking it and seeing how it feels, and we were like, hey, we should probably let's put some footing on this, let's make it a little bit more. So we put some footing on it, and then I remember the sides where we had plywood, and then I think day one, a horse maybe bumped it and put a hole in the plywood. So literally within an hour, they had these beautiful sheets of aluminum that shirted up so that wouldn't happen again. And we even talked about how high the plywood was going to be. Are the horses going to be better to see above it? Should it be full wood? That was every detail. Where should the lights be? Should it be from the ring? Should we put them on them? Is it going to be too bright? Is it going to be too dark? So that bridge honestly turned out so perfect. And I think the horses really enjoyed, people like to be on and riding from the stabling. They like to get on there and then walk over. And that was a huge thing. I think almost everybody rode over. I think the hardest thing that we dealt with on that was that people had to learn was there was active track training until 30 minutes before the horse show. So
I can't believe we haven't mentioned that yet, actually. People need to realize that horses, 2,000 horses or 1,500 horses, whatever, a lot of horses, were training on the track from 4:45 a.m. till 30 minutes before we opened the infield for jumpers to cross.
10:30.
If you were on the infield, I mean, you saw hundreds of horses running. It was the coolest thing, and they worked. It worked well together.
yeah, one thing that actually they mentioned, which I hadn't even thought about, was somebody came up and they were like, oh yeah, my horse, they all got adjusted, but the first night they came in and their horse was a little up because they had heard the horses all training on the other side of the hedge the first morning, and they could hear them breezing on the track, and the horses were like, what's going on the other side of the hedge? And literally the girl was like, I think I'm gonna go get a sound machine or something. It was, and of course they all adjusted and they got used to it. But that was a factor that I hadn't even thought of was, we have stabling and then we've got all these horses breezing and running, and obviously horses are why is there horses running on the other side? So those are the crazy things that we didn't think about. And literally it was the last horse would step off that track, the Santa Anita track team would come in, get everything watered. How long is that track, Ashlyn? It's huge.
Oh my gosh, it's a mile if you go around the track.
Yeah, watered, perfectly groomed in a matter of 10 minutes for the horses to start coming over to start competing. That was really cool.
Yeah, the
Interesting.
timing of everything. That's where the National League came in. We were able to a little bit perfect the timing of when the tractors were crossing and the horses were able to cross, and that trial run really helped with that aspect of crossing the tracks.
It was interesting on our side too, just from the racing perspective, because these horses, I mean, a lot of them are a lot younger than the jumpers, and they are, they're not used to all this infrastructure in the infield, the big LED board, all the banners and the signage. So it was interesting. They also got acclimated really well.
That's right.
I think our horsemen were so happy to have the jumpers come and visit Santa Anita and see what the facility's like. I mean, we haven't had any jumpers there since the 1984 Olympics. So I think, your clientele worked really well with our groups and vice versa. Everybody was just happy to see this whole equestrian ecosystem at Santa Anita.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, horse enthusiasts or anybody that enjoys horse sport of any capacity, just enjoy it. And we've seen that in Fort Worth. That's why we're having World Cup finals there, because we're it's an ag town. People get it. They all like it. They all want to watch. But it's the same thing. That's why I think it's so important to, bring all horse communities together to be able to put events like this on, and the reception was great. And so the bridge was, and the training on the track was definitely such a unique aspect of this event that I think will be memorable for everyone. I think that this is one of those events that will never get old. Like, people will look forward to this event every single year now because there are so many unique elements that cannot be recreated anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool. The other aspects, so that's stabling, crossing the track. We've talked about the infield layout, everything like that. The hospitality areas, let's talk about that recap that a bit. So we had multiple hospitality areas for different groups. We had the hospitality area in FEI, which was amazing, was open to all the officials that are over there, all of the grooms, all of the riders, all the owners, all the team staff, everybody. It was a full spread of multiple options all day, every day. It was incredible. Then we
Derek,
had
you and I ate breakfast there. I mean, it was great. That's where we ate breakfast. And Derek and I would eat breakfast there, and it was so good. And it was so well received. Like, I've never seen so many support staff come up and say, wow, thank you so much for this. This is one of the nicest touches we've ever seen. And, it was definitely one of the highlights for them.
And that was a point that Nikki, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was going to say exactly what you're saying. That was a point that Nikki really drove home. I mean, making sure that the grooms and the support staff are happy and well fed. And I mean, they really have the ear to the rider. So they can really make or break a show, and keeping them happy and thanking them for all the hard work that they're doing. It's definitely something she was very adamant to achieve.
Yeah, just all those like non-cutting corners of those details just created this great environment for everybody to have a successful event. The other areas we had this, which was also probably over the top, I think will be memorable for everybody and all the competitors, was the rider lounge. We had this massive 120 by 40 tent right next to the in-gate that had an outside and an inside. The inside was the tent. The outside had about 20 picnic tables, was probably 80 foot by 120, massive grass green space that in between the schooling area, the warm-up, and this rider areas. And it had everything. And honestly, it was like almost so well received, and I feel like we overdid the offerings in the rider tent that maybe made people feel like maybe they didn't need VIP or other things like, the juices and everything. It was just so amazing. The rider tent was sponsored by Brain Juice, and I just thought, everything from the linens, the type of chairs that were put in there, the carpeting, the couches, the decor, like, it felt like a VIP.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think it's important too, Ashlyn and Sammy. You guys can talk more on this. And these are what's happened. Like I said, in the kitchen, they were so well received, and people were consuming so much stuff. There was pressed juice. There was, like Derek mentioned, brain juice. There was snacks, yogurts. I mean, tons of things, more than I've ever seen. And that was open to all the riders and everybody else at the horse show. And then we kind of got a message after the first day, like, we're going through so much stuff, and you guys can kind of take it from there. But it was an interesting conversation and trying to make the decision of whether or not you continue this or what to do. And
I think no doubt you can't go back. I mean, we're not going to not continue with it, but definitely certain little choices can be changed. But it was really special.
It was, but I do remember Ashlyn coming up to me and we were talking about it, and it's a rider lounge, but she's like, okay, work with me here. She's like, so we've given out 1,400 wristbands, and we're letting anybody that has a wristband in this rider lounge. We planned to have enough juice, snacks, whatever for 500. So somewhere we mismathed. And I think that I was like, oh yeah, we sure did. And so we kind of were like, listen, like, let's not, we're not going to go back on it, but there will probably be ways that we do it a little bit more, scaled for next year, you know, and that's just something that like first year you wanted money to enjoy it, but then you're also like, okay, we probably shouldn't be feeding 1,400 people $7 pressed juices for free, you know, like, and
Yeah.
that's something where we're like, listen, when it's out, like let's
It
use
was
what we
awesome.
allotted for the day.
It was
When it's
awesome.
gone, it's gone. And I mean, even you looked around like everybody had a pressed juice in their hand, but to that point, those are the things that make the big difference. Like
Yeah.
people, these are athletes. Like they want to be able to walk in, you know, there were one other thing that was really crazy to me, was it would go from like 80 degrees to 40 fast, like within 30 minutes. And so
The sun went
even
down.
yeah, and people didn't know that. Like people didn't pack or plan for that. So they would be on the A
No.
field during that like 4 or 5, 6 o'clock time, and they would be freezing. And you could go in that ride along to get a hot cup of coffee or some hot water and hot tea. And like even just having hot water or tea or coffee makes a huge difference when you're at a horse show and you're freezing. And that those are the little things that like are really important because those are the touches that I think people really appreciate.
That was another point that it's funny, the level, once people experience it, the level of expectation of the competitors is a little ridiculous. I mean, it is. I'm not afraid to say it. You know, and we created this high level of everything, and every detail was so nice that at one point, you know, like you're saying, the sun goes down at 4:15 and it drops. Like it goes literally, it was 79 to 45.
Yeah.
And midway through the 5-star week, I cannot tell you how many people came up to me and was like, can you please put major heaters in this rider lounge? And we're like, oh my God, like, is this for re-? And then
We
they
did.
were the ears. They came.
And
I'm
then we
like,
got
you
ears.
guys did not need to do this. Like, they can put a jacket on.
Yeah, but it's about like creating the customer experience too. And like we wanted these competitors for this facility to feel like home, you know, like for a place for them to feel really comfortable first year. And so we had them and we're like, put them up, let's go.
It was amazing. I mean, yeah, I mean, these are the things that I literally had, probably no exaggeration, 5 people tell me that they thought this was the best event in the world. That they compared it to the best event in the world and said it was better and they liked it more. Like, but these are the tiny little things that, you know, when you accomplish an event of this caliber, like, and I don't think any of us in both teams only want to put on the best. So that's where it just took it to another level. You know, and sporadically we're putting in there, you know, the little details that we know we could have done better or could have thought out a little further, like the lighting, like the bridge, like the heating or the temperatures. Like, you know, when I thought of us doing an event in LA, I only thought of perfect weather.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
And you know, when we talk about what's horse show management 101, you assess the weather. Right? As the first thing we look at, right, Mike? We've talked about so many events that have failed on this, including ours.
I brought my long johns though. I looked. So
Mike was
I was good.
I listened through, but I was just focused on the mid-70s and sunny LA, and I knew there was a possibility of rain. I've been told by other people that it could rain. We prepared for that. I don't know if people realize that, but that time of year is a little risky for rain.
Yeah.
We had preparations in place for stabling that nobody even knows about. We have preparations and drainage and all that, so we were ready for it. So, I mean, we were asking for no rain because we wanted it to be a great experience for people, but you know, we were ready for it if it did. And you know, just little things like that just contribute to people's expectations and experience. And I think that we'll work some of those little kinks out for next year. Any quality organizing committee does. You know, one of the other things that kind of really about this is going to be a little bit of a pat on the back for the Split Rock team that I'm really proud of, was the production of the Grand Prix. I thought the production of the Grand Prix, I literally could not have imagined it to go any better. And the production team for CBS and the team that did all the actual broadcast came to me after the Grand Prix and said, we literally, I don't know how you guys did this. Every second was hit perfectly. You know, so we have a big run of show and everything and timing of how everything But it goes back to like the communication aspect of the earpieces and how we coordinated everybody's communication. We had a lead production manager. Her name was Marcy that helped a lot producing this, making sure everybody was in the right place at the right time. But it goes all the way out into the warm-up ring of having our in-gate person be professional enough to make sure that horse is walking down the chute at the exact time we need them. I mean, that horse stepped foot across the chain of the in-gate arch the exact time every single time they needed to when broadcast was going live. And they were like, we've never seen this before. Like, how did you guys do this? And that could have been luck. It could have been preparation. I think it was a little bit of both. But that was so freaking cool.
Yeah, but I also think that it goes back to, like, we've been doing this for 10 years. And you and I have said, like, we probably weren't ready till now to run a 5-star that well. And we've had our fair share of having opening ceremonies not be great timing. But
Oh, we lost him. Are you losing on there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, yeah.
But it's true. We did hit every marker. And I'd love to let Sami finish her point when she comes back on.
Yeah.
But I think it was a really strong testament to how the teams work together and the Split Rocks team's experience for doing this for so long. I mean, you've been with them how many years, Mike?
11 years. So, and I think the big differentiator, to be honest, is that a lot of organizers, managers, however you want to say it, they get to the event and they're not present, in that they're sitting back and enjoying it, networking, doing those things. The one thing I think about Derek, myself, Sami, other people is we're present. We're not off enjoying the show. We're there, which, is, I think, different. And I've worked for other organizers and been a part of other things, but I think it's so important because you lead by example, right? So
I agree. Like on our side too, that's something we really loved about your team because we're very much the same way. Aiden is boots on the ground. He's present. Nikki and Belinda, they're walking around the facility. Dr. Benson, she's there. I mean, she even got FEI accredited just to be present at a show
that
like
was
this.
so amazing to fully understand and have to be present and be able to jump in when needed. I think that's why there was a lot of respect, and I think that's
both
not
sides.
something that's easily created, right? You have to earn respect. And I think on both sides it was there. And I was so enamored with your team, and seeing how hard you guys work, and the same thing, how present you are,
I remember Derek at the night of the Grand Prix just being like so tight on words. Everybody's got to hit their marker. Everybody's got to be in their place. And, I mean, Audrey, Stephanie, Ashley, all of them just banded together and, got everybody in the ring on time.
One person per horse, and walk them in from the schooling area right to
the
the
marker.
award presentation. But it worked, right? See, these are the things that are pretty remarkable when they all come together, the way that they should. So,
Pardon the internet interruption. But yeah, we were talking about our broadcast and the production for the broadcast and how on cue and on time we were with it was really, really special for our team, because you were saying like, we've been doing this for 10 years and it's led up to this. So if you can keep elaborating on that.
Yeah. I mean, and having Marcy there, she really kind of brought in that like last bit that we needed. I mean, she does a lot of like Red Bull events, so she came in with like sort of a different perspective and a way to organize it and where she stood and communicated. And I think that was an amazing final aspect that like we've been missing in our opening ceremonies. We've never had somebody that was just dedicated to that. And that was something that Derek, when we knew we were having this 5-star, was really adamant about getting a person to just lead that. And I think that was a really big piece of that puzzle. And having, Ashlyn and VIP, there was a lot of stuff going over there. And I remember calling and being like, hey, let's cut this, let's start that. We had different sound than what was going in VIP. They had live DJs in there that we were coordinating with breaks and drag breaks and stuff like that. So
balls and flash photography and all the things for on the entertainment side that we just had to make sure we're also safe for the sports side.
Yeah, literally 2 minutes before the first horse was walking in, there was a huge disco ball spinning in VIP, and
Well, I
really, we gotta
remember
make sure we got
Nikki asked me, she's like, Derek, what do you think about this? How's it look from the ring? I'm like, you're right. Take it out. Stop it. Turn it off. The hoses are going to freak out.
Save it for the after party, right?
And we love a disco ball. That was one of the things Belinda said. She's like, soon as that horse hits the ring, it's off. It's done.
Yeah,
So-
that was also one thing you mentioned, opening ceremonies. I think we can elaborate on those a bit further for next year, bring in some different kind of entertainment and make those a little stronger for the experience side of pre Grand Prix and pre jumping. I think that could have been a little bit more fleshed out, a little bit bigger, but and it was good. It was fine, but I think that's one thing that maybe next year also, I don't even know if people noticed that it could have been better, but I think that could have been a little bit better.
I think now we understand the clientele a little bit more too, and what what people are anticipating. So stay tuned. I think there'll be better entertainment.
Well,
yeah, the
as we were
GA
off-
section too. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yes. And while we were off, Ashlyn and I were talking, and as Derek mentioned, hitting all the cues and being on time and how awesome that was. And, it takes a big effort from everybody. But I also think that one of the things that differentiates, our Split Rock team, which I know well, but also first, is a lot of organizers, managers aren't always present once the show starts, right? Whereas when I say present, they're there, but maybe they're going networking, in the tent or doing the different things. But the difference is we're present, we're there. I know Derek and I are usually somebody's always there and we swap off, but we're present. Sami's there. And I think that that's different. And I think that helps it so much in that we're there to see those things. And Ashlyn was saying the same thing with their team.
Trade secrets, Mike.
Oh, sorry.
No, but I was saying like our team leads by example too. Like Aiden is he's a leader, boots on the ground. Like you'll find him walking around the facility all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
James, Daniel, Nikki, like they were all making sure, checking things, looking at things. I even brought up like Dr. Benson. I mean, she got accredited just to be present for the FEI show. She was FEI accredited just to work.
It was so crazy seeing James. We came in the one morning, I don't know what time it was, 6:30 in the stabling area. And Ashlyn, I'm not sure James' title, but
We had a
he's a
huge
big part of first.
Chief.
And he was in the stabling area walking around like in the early mornings just to fully understand, because this is not his first rodeo and not his first event, but it was his first show jumping event. And he was going back there and walking and checking everything out on how it can be better, and I thought that was so amazing to see.
I think that was one of the best conversations of anybody on any of this entire process that Mike, you and I had with James. We stood there. I remember where you talked. I think it was 6:30 a.m. We're just getting there, getting the ball rolling, because normally we'd actually be there earlier, but this event didn't start till 10:30 a.m. So it was 6:30. James comes walking around the corner, and Mike are like, "What are you doing here? Everything okay?" And I think we stood there and talked for 30 or 45 minutes about all the little details, and it was such a productive conversation. And yeah, totally. Just the fact that you got the team of first was just really on every aspect trying to understand why we were making the decisions we were emphasizing and making, and layout and all of it, and it's just pretty cool for sure. Yeah, so I mean, in general, those are some of the things that we could do better. Those are some of the things that we could have improve on in the future. But what is this like? The people are I've had so many people, you mentioned earlier, Sami, say, "Is this event happening next year?" I'm like, well, I hope so. Like, it has to happen next year. Just so people understand, we were collectively awarded the World Cup qualifier bid for the North American League, World Cup League, to qualify people for World Cup finals for 4 years. So this was year one of a 4-year bid for this particular event. So you're stuck with us for at least 4 years to, enjoy this event, come out there and experience it, whether you're a spectator, sponsor, exhibitor, family member, like, you can plan on this event on these dates for the next 3 years. We have 3 years left on our bid, and hopefully it goes well beyond that into next 30 years. But you can count on that. It's absolutely happening next year. Hopefully, definitely, I don't say definitely, hopefully both weeks are happening next year. The first week is still pending federation approval. We did apply for an increased level of the first week for a 3-star, which I think would be incredible to have a 3-star, 5-star for people to fly from around the world, to do 2 high caliber weeks in a row. But we knew that the first year it just needed to be a little simpler to get the ball rolling. But now that we know the ropes a little bit, we can expand upon that. As for other events that are happening at Santa Anita, I think, Ashlyn, you can speak to this too. Like, we just wanted to get through the first year. I know your team wanted to get through the first year, see how it was received, and then maybe a couple years down the line, it can be assessed for other things, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're always open to options, but I think we're all looking really forward to this event next year, building on the momentum that we've created year one, and just trying to raise the bar again for the World Cup
And
qualifier.
this is a marquee event for first, right? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, we host 3 big race days across all of our tracks. So at Gulfstream Park, we have Pegasus World Cup at the end of January. We have Preakness 150 this year in May, which is, a very iconic event. I encourage everybody to check it out if they haven't. And we just launched last year our inaugural California Crown at Santa Anita Park. So this is like the 4th marquee event in partnership with Split Rock, that we're really driving to create lifestyle, entertainment, and sport all into one.
That was cool. You nailed that line. And I think that's what this clientele and these exhibitors and these participants want. I really think that, like, the quality of the entertainment and all those aspects are, like, so critical to nail, and that's where this has been a bit of a dream team, because we do know the sports side of this market, and I pride myself on knowing exactly what these competitors want and being able to communicate with them, of all aspects. And you guys do that on the racing side, but also then you guys added such an incredible level of hospitality and detail and to every other aspect that Sami and I necessarily weren't lead on this project. And it was just a perfect dream team that really came together. All in all, for a full recap of this event, it was an extreme success. And I'm not just saying that because it was our event or it was cool or it was this or that. Like, no, it really was that good. And it did come off as if it wasn't even a first year event. It was as if we were having it for 10 years. That was pretty amazing. I think everybody on all the teams need to be applauded for their level of effort and jump to action and commitment to making this event as amazing as it was. And honestly, I'm just like, Michelle, my wife, was actually saying to me, like, we leave events, like, but events are draining, like, events are really, really draining on family, on our physical well-being. We don't sleep, we do this, like, it's a lot of work, and I don't think people realize that. But she made a comment of being like this is an event, like, we look forward to now. Like, this was so cool that, like, the workload, the lack of sleep, all of it is, like, worth it. So we just want to go do it again. We
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember this was like, I remember getting home and literally I had dreams for like 3 nights about the event, and I was like, okay, enough. Like, we're done, we're through. It was amazing. But it was a high. Like, it was a really cool feeling to come home and be like, obviously we all leave our families. Like, I was away from my kids for 10 days, which was a challenge in its own, but like, to come home and be like, my daughter Amelia was like, how'd it go? And I was like, girly, we nailed it. And it's really cool to be able to say that and show it to her. And she watched it on TV. Like, we let her stay up late and have popcorn and watch it and be like, that's what we did. And it's cool to be proud of that.
But I think it's always been the dream of at least our organizing committee to put on, and I'll use the word that first uses, marquee events and really unique, special, iconic, memorable events. And that's always been my dream for our company in Split Rock. We're a specialized event company. That's what we are to our core. That's how I started our business back in 2015. Yes, we have big box horse shows also, but like, that's how I see us. That's why we went out on a limb to hold World Cup finals. That's why we help organize the 5-star during the Land Rover 3-day event, which is like also another very traditional, very iconic, very memorable type event. And I think this one is now too. And we don't want to just host any event anywhere, a 5-star, a million 5-stars. We want to host the best ones. We want to strive to always get better, to host the most memorable, iconic events. And when you think of the other events that are out there that are special, I hope in the future people can talk about these events and this event at Santa Anita as one of them in North America or globally. Like when you think of what are the best events out there come to mind that are like iconic and traditional and all this, you think of 3 come to mind, and they're not here in North America. They're Dublin, Aachen, Geneva. Like I just think of those 3. And Santa Anita was an event that all the riders were comparing those 3 to me. That's pretty freaking cool. So I think we accomplished what we set out to accomplish. We know we're even going to get better, which is the cool thing into next year. I hope people can see that, recognize that, and come experience it with us, whether you be a sponsor, a spectator, because they're or a competitor. Like, this event is that special, and I encourage everybody to come see it, not just because it's our event or we have anything to do with it, because it is that cool, and Santa Anita is that cool. And just we really appreciate everybody, the sponsors, the spectators, the competitors coming out and then experiencing a first year and trusting us to put on that product for them in the first year event, fly from all around the world to come compete at it and meet their expectations is a testament to our team and pretty special. Ashlyn, Mike, Sami, thank you so much for joining us on this 5-star Santa Anita recap. It's been a pleasure to have all you guys and work with everyone on these teams. We hope everybody can tune into this episode and many more on HorseShow360 podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch full episodes. Follow us in our clips on Instagram, HorseShow360. You can also tune into the audio and podcasts on all podcast platforms everywhere. Thank you guys again for joining us, and we hope you tune in soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.